Welcome back to Peril Pending. Today we're looking at Richard Tice and the delusional world of reform. So, Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice, gave a speech in the House of Commons. The worst PM ever, you can see there. It's exactly what you would expect from a paid-up member of Reform. Let's have a watch.
86 years ago today, on the 13th of May 1940, Britain's greatest and most popular Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, rose to give his first speech as Prime Minister. At a time of war, he said he could offer nothing but blood, sweat and tears. And 86 years later, we have heard from Britain's most unpopular, possibly
Most unpopular PM? Is that true? Well, lucky for you, I've got a little tab open here at the most popular UK Prime Ministers. He is correct, Winston Churchill is at the top there, although I don't know why a member of Reform with Nigel Farage, who, I mean, we can all speculate what side he'd be on, but never mind, let's have a look. So, we've got Churchill at the top, Johnson at 7, that's pretty wild to be perfectly honest with you. Sunak at 17. Ooh, Starmer might be, oh, hang on, he's 21st. Well, that's not the worst then. Let's have a look who's with David Cameron. How far before Liz Truss? 41st, Liz Truss, who, by the way, your boss, Nigel Farage, believed to be a fantastic Prime Minister with an amazing budget. But you know what? Yep, carry on. I'm sure you know exactly what you're talking about, Tice.
86 years sweat and tears. And 86 years later, we have heard from Britain's most unpopular, possibly the worst Prime Minister ever. After just 22 months, Madam Deputy Speaker, all we have had is failure, incompetence and negligence.
Incorrect. We've actually seen economic growth. We've seen something that you should be on the ball with, but I'm not surprised why you don't want to bring it up. A reduction in net migration. We've seen additional funding for the NHS. It's not all been great. Don't get me wrong. I'm no Starmer stan, but to say it's been nothing but failure, well, that's just a lie. And it was pretty obvious it was always a lie because it was coming from the mouth of Richard Tice.
And we have a programme of government in this King's Speech that in a sense represents everything that this Prime Minister currently that we...
A King's Speech, by the way, I just want to point out that Nigel Farage didn't attend. And again, I'm no royalist, but considering how much it seems to mean to Richard Tice, it's weird he's got no comments for his dear leader.
Suffer under represents process and regulation. Process and regulation.
Well done. He knows how to repeat himself. Process and regulation. You mean like when they got rid of the regulations and the red tape around Brexit that you were all so fond of? And then the economy went in the shitter and businesses had to close. And now every single household in the UK is about £3,000 a year worse off. But yeah, go on, tell us more about all this terrible, terrible regulation that you as a businessman, I'm sure, have no secret interests in getting rid of.
And the thing about that is that just drives up costs. And there is nothing that I can see in this programme of government that will...
Actually, getting rid of these regulations drove up costs because now that we're no longer a part of the EU, there is a lot more regulation. It's a weird bit of recursion there. But it's true. It's a fact.
Actually reduce bills. Will reduce the cost of living. I'll come back to you, my good sir.
What? How would getting rid of regulation reduce bills? You'll not be surprised. He doesn't go on to explain that. He's just blurting stuff out, because that's all Reform ever do. They just vomit words that make people who, you know, are in desperate times, it makes them feel like there's some hope, but there's not. They're using you.
Reduce the cost of living, and that will drive up growth, drive up prosperity, and drive up the quantity.
Getting rid of regulation will not reduce bills and drive up growth. That doesn't make any sense. There's no correlation there whatsoever.
Quantity of jobs. But I will give way to my honourable member.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. He talks about regulation. Would he enlighten or educate me? Because I have failed to identify a successfully self-regulating industry anywhere in the world. When you remove regulations, you harm consumers, animals, nature, and the planet. So please, can you enlighten me or educate me on what the alternative is?
No, the honourable gentleman.
Excellent question. He's absolutely correct. In every single instance, removing these regulations, like the regulations are there to protect us. That's why we don't have chlorinated chicken, for example. That's why we don't have hormone-injected beef. Because that would be bad for the consumer. That would be bad for the ordinary citizen. That's only good for big business because it's cost-cutting. It is cost-cutting. He's not wrong there, I suppose. But it's cost-cutting for the business.
What we want, Madam Deputy Speaker, is smart and safe regulation. Yes.
Hang on, whoa. This wouldn't be Reform doing an immediate flip-flop within seconds. You just said you wanted to get rid of regulation, and now you're saying you want smart regulation. So do you want regulation, or do you not want regulation, Mr. Richard Tice?
What we don't want is daft, dither and delay. And this Prime Minister, of course, represents...
I'm so bloody sick of these ridiculous three-word slogans. What's he on about? Also, I'm pretty sure daft, dither and delay is a one they... not Reform, but somebody used during the Tory government. Like, honestly, get creative or get rid.
It's all of those three things: dither, daftness, and delay. But in a desire, of course, Madam Deputy Speaker, to be constructive, I have scoured this bill and I have found some good news. And the greatest news of this programme for government...
Can you see Jedrick there? Even he looks sick of listening to Tice. If your own ex-Tory party members can't stand you, why would you think that the country as a whole would?
Government is there is one bill where this government has copied and learnt from Reform. Listen to what I said almost exactly a year ago when I said we must nationalise British steel and invest in it and grow in it so that it becomes the heart of our sovereign steel-making capability. And although it is somewhat delayed after...
He is true there, obviously. I think it was about April of 25 when Tice on LBC was saying that they need to renationalise steel. I'm glad that Starmer's doing it now. I do have to agree. I don't know why it took so long. That could have been a quick, easy win. Now we're going to jump ahead here. We're not going to watch I'm not going to subject you to the whole thing. There's a lot of blither. There's a lot of bloviation. There's a lot of just useless, as you'd expect, word salad from Reform.
Independence bill will make things dramatically worse and completely those measures for the benefit of so many children. I think that is absolutely vital. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, there is some very bad news in this bill, I regret to say. And the first of that is that when we all talk about the crisis of our energy bills and our electricity bills, the plans for an energy independence bill will make things dramatically worse and completely unbelievably.
What is with the movements? He's just doing this for a show. Also, he's upset, unsurprisingly, because the energy independence bill focuses a lot on green energy, renewable energy, which would provide us with independence because we would own the solar, we would own the wind, we would own the tidal. Unsurprisingly, I bet we can all guess where he's going to take a turn here and what energy actually would be really good.
ignoring all the evidence of the growth of the 80s and the 90s.
We're not in the 80s and 90s. Should we start smoking in front of children again and giving them second-hand smoke? We did a lot of that in the 80s and 90s. In fact, one thing that we could take from the very early 90s, 78, would be the top rate of tax, which was at 83%, one of the highest in the developed world. Unsurprisingly, it was brought down dramatically by Thatcher, but hey, I'm sure Tice definitely wants to bring up the top rate of tax. I mean, I'm sure that there isn't a very clear and obvious history of him saying we shouldn't do that. So I guess we can only take some parts from the 80s and 90s.
In the last century, when we were growing at 2.5% to 4% most years, because we used the great energy treasure in the North Sea of oil and gas.
Incorrect. That's not how that works. We do not get that. It goes to the global market. It does not go directly to the UK. Either he knows this and he's lying, or he doesn't know this and he's chosen to speak about it. In either case, you can't trust reform.
This government thinks it's a good idea, it's a terrible idea, to ban...
Again, look at that. It's a show. It's a show with this guy. Throwing his arms around. There's, like, you can see from the start of the video, there's barely anyone in here. And yet he's still throwing his arms around. It's his big moment to talk about stuff he just really doesn't understand.
And all new exploration of any more oil and gas fields. Unbelievable. We must be the only nation in the world with the joy and the pleasure and the treasure of oil and gas.
I mean, what are you talking about? The joy and the pleasure and the treasure of oil and gas. Mate, for me and every other working class person around here, there's no joy in it. There's no treasure in it. It's petrol at the pump. That's it. I can understand why you, backed by big oil, would call it treasure, because you probably get a tiny little throwback from them, I'm sure. But for the ordinary working person, we just want to be able to pay our bills. How can we pay our bills? If we control the energy, which we would with renewables. We would not with drilling in the North Sea. That's quite simply not how it works.
That says, no, it's a good idea to leave it down there. It's unbelievably incompetent, it is negligent, and it is the reason that we have such high energy bills. And
it's not.
Absolute tragedy, because that could drive up the growth and the prosperity. So we must absolutely ensure that that does not happen. My other deepest concern of all in this programme of government, Madam Deputy Speaker, is that, in a sense, I am joyous. We at Reform are joyous. We've just completely smashed it.
And we're just going to leave it there, because he just goes on to talk about how he has, quote-unquote, absolutely smashed it. All while his councillors drop like flies for being racists, for being misogynists, for being domestic abusers. But hey-ho, that's the face of reform.